So if you have 1 million followers on X and you like hit publish on a post right now,
Right.
960,000 of them will never even see it.
Yeah, it's a staggering reality check, isn't
It
it?
changes literally everything. You spend 3 hours crafting this perfect thread, you hit send, and
And nothing.
right, maybe you get 12 likes, and the immediate, almost inevitable knee-jerk reaction is to, well, blame yourself.
Oh, absolutely.
You think, my writing wasn't punchy enough, or I didn't use the right hook. I'm just losing my touch.
Yeah, imposter syndrome kicks right in.
Exactly. But today, we are completely dismantling that assumption.
Welcome to today's deep dive. We're basically cracking open this fascinating strategy guide written by Kevin O'Frank. He's the co-founder of Circleboom.
Yep, Circleboom.
And he's tackling what has to be the single most frustrating problem for anyone trying to build an audience online right now, which is, abysmal engagement. Yeah. And what's crucial to understand right out of the gate is that Kevin isn't giving us like another generic listicle about, posting at 10 a.m. or...
Use more emojis.
Right, exactly. He is approaching this as a structural, like an architectural problem with the platform itself.
Yes, because your audience is essentially trapped behind this tiny 2-hour algorithmic window.
Mm-hmm.
The guide points out that the lifespan of a tweet is just incredibly short. I mean, 1 to 2 hours, tops.
Yeah, it's fleeting.
So if your followers aren't online actively refreshing their feed during that exact window, the algorithm just completely buries your content.
It's gone.
Gone. So that 4% visibility rate, it isn't a reflection of your content's quality at all. It's just the physical limit of the timeline's velocity.
Right.
If you've been pulling your hair out wondering why nobody's interacting with your posts, well, this is why. You don't have a writing problem, you have a distribution problem.
And because people misunderstand the problem, they apply the exact wrong solution,
Oh, they just throw money at it.
Exactly. The default move for a brand or, a creator or journalist looking at declining numbers is to open up the native X ads platform and just cast this massive, incredibly expensive net.
Oh, totally.
What's fascinating here is that throwing money at broad Twitter ads is a total trap.
Mm.
They might set a parameter like, show my ad to people interested in technology, and then they just sit back and hope.
But the guide explains why that broad targeting is just a massive trap. Like when you tell the platform to find people who like tech, X basically takes your budget and spends it testing the waters.
Yeah.
It throws your ad onto the timelines of thousands of people who might have, accidentally clicked a tech article 6 months ago.
Or bot accounts.
Right, bots, or people who are just going to mindlessly scroll past it anyway. You are paying top dollar for all of that wasted experimental effort.
Yeah, you deplete your whole marketing budget in a matter of hours, and the needle barely even moves.
So frustrating.
So the methodology we're looking at today, it completely flips that model. It's not about spending more money to shout louder.
Right.
It is about spending an almost uncomfortably small amount of money, but with absolute surgical precision using custom data exports.
Okay, let's unpack this. How do we actually get that custom data? Because if we know that natively only 4% of people are going to see a post, the very first step to expanding your reach is, well, finding users who are absolutely guaranteed to care about what you're saying.
Right, you need sure things.
And the guide suggests the best place to find them isn't by guessing. It's by going straight into your competitor's backyard.
Exactly. So Kevin calls this the analyze competitors method, and it entirely bypasses the flawed logic of that native ad targeting we just talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of relying on X's vague kind of black box definition of who likes a certain topic, this strategy utilizes Circleboom to literally extract lists of specific users who have actively retweeted your competitors.
Wow, and the distinction between a like and a retweet is massive here, isn't it?
Oh, it's night and day. It is the difference between a passive observer and an active participant. Like, a like is cheap. It's a double tap while you're half asleep watching Netflix on the couch.
Right.
But a retweet is a user taking your competitor's content and pinning it to their own personal digital billboard. It's a public endorsement.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, that is an incredibly strong signal of high-intent engagement.
The guide walks through this really fantastic concrete scenario using fast food brands that kind of crystallize this for me.
Or burger example, yeah.
Let's say you are managing a new fast food brand and you're trying to make a splash on X. You don't go to the ad platform and target, fast food levels.
Well, that's too broad.
Way too broad. Instead, you use the tool to analyze 5 massive competitors. So McDonald's, Burger King, KFC, Wendy's, and Popeyes.
Mm-hmm.
You pull the raw data, like the exact user IDs of the people who retweeted those specific accounts. And the guy notes that pulling the retweeters from just those 5 brands yields this massive list of over 150,000 highly engaged accounts.
Right, and think about the pure signal in that data. You aren't guessing if those 150,000 people enjoy engaging with fast food content.
They already told you they do.
Exactly, they have quite literally stamped their public signature on it.
But hold on, let's play devil's advocate for a second here. I hear that number, 150,000 people, and my immediate thought is that this is still like a stadium full of people.
It is a lot of people, yeah.
Okay, let's unpack this. If we just take that massive CSV file of 150,000 names and dump it into an ad campaign, aren't we right back where we started? I mean, we've just manually recreated the problem of a bloated, expensive audience.
Well, yeah, it would be incredibly expensive, yes, if we stopped there. But
Right.
we don't.
Okay.
We don't blast an ad to all 150,000 of them. This is where Kevin introduces the overlap tool. And this is really where the strategy goes from being just, a neat trick to something incredibly formidable.
Okay, how does the overlap work?
So you take those 5 distinct CSV files, the McDonald's retweeters, the Burger King retweeters, the Wendy's retweeters, and you cross-reference them.
Ah, I see.
Yeah, you filter the data to find the specific users who exist on multiple lists.
Yeah. Wow. That makes perfect sense. Because if someone retweets a Wendy's joke, they might not actually care about fast food marketing.
Right.
They might just think the social media manager is funny.
Precisely. The single brand retweeter is a pretty weak signal. But think about the psychology of the user who retweets Wendy's and Burger King and Popeyes.
And that person is obsessed.
Exactly. That person isn't just amused by a single joke. That person is heavily invested in the fast food ecosystem on X. They are a hyper-engaged superfan of the entire space.
So by finding that intersection, you are ruthlessly shrinking the pool of users.
Yes.
Like you might take that initial 150,000 and whittle it down to a tiny fraction of that size.
Yeah.
But while the audience pool shrinks, the probability that they will engage with your content absolutely skyrockets.
Right. You're trading a massive kind of apathetic crowd for a tiny room full of fanatics.
Yeah, you are filtering out the noise and saving your budget exclusively for the guaranteed hits.
Exactly. You pay a fraction of the cost, but you get a massively higher conversion rate.
Okay, so we've established how to effectively poach these highly engaged superfans from competitors.
Yeah.
But what about the house we've already built?
Right. Your own audience.
Yeah. If we go back to that brutal 4% visibility statistic, I mean, that means 96% of your own loyal followers are missing your posts.
It's wild.
It really is. So it's time to find the 100% of your actually engaged audience, rather than just crossing your fingers and relying on the 4% who happen to be online during that tiny 2-hour window.
So Kevin refers to this core in-house group as your locomotive.
Oh, I like that.
Right. And if you think about how a train operates, a locomotive's sole purpose is to pull the incredibly heavy freight behind it. In this ecosystem, the heavy freight is the passive scrollers.
The 96%.
Exactly. Your brand advocates the people who consistently like, comment, and retweet your stuff. They are the engine. When they engage, they pull your content onto the timelines of thousands of passive users who otherwise would never see it.
Okay, so if I already have this locomotive, why can't I just log into the native ads dashboard and click a button that says, "Hey, X, show my ad to the people who engage with me"?
Because of the blunt way the platform categorizes user data?
What do you mean?
Well, if you try to target your own engaged audience through the native platform, X lumps together users who merely saw your tweet, meaning it just briefly flashed across their screen while they scrolled by at 60 miles an hour.
Right.
They lump them with the users who actually stopped, read it, and engaged.
Oh, so it waters down the targeting pool again.
Exactly. It conflates passive impressions with active engagement. You end up paying real money to show ads to people who have a history of just scrolling right past you.
That's terrible.
Yeah. So to fix this, you have to bypass X's native ad filters entirely. You have to use a tool to export only the explicitly engaged accounts.
The guide breaks down the mathematics of this process step by step, and it really shifts this from theoretical advice to a practical roadmap.
Yeah, the math is where it gets real.
Let's walk through the exact hypothetical scenario provided in the text. Imagine you were managing a massive account. You have 1 million followers.
Okay.
But because of that algorithm decay, you're getting an embarrassingly low interaction rate. let's say about 50 engagements per tweet.
Which is incredibly demoralizing, but again, a symptom of the architecture, not the content.
Right. So instead of despairing, you go into Circleboom and you tell it to fetch your last 3,200 tweets. It analyzes all of them. Over those 3,200 posts, at 50 engagements a pop, you're looking at roughly 160,000 total interactions.
But we have to refine that number because 160,000 interactions does not equal 160,000 unique people.
Right, because of repeat engagers.
Exactly. You have hardcore fans who are liking and retweeting multiple times across those thousands of posts.
Exactly. You might have one guy, let's call him Superfan99, who interacted with 400 of your tweets.
Yep.
He's just one person. So the tool processes the data and removes all the duplicates. And according to the math in the guide, after deduplication, you were left with about 50,000 to 60,000 unique, hyper-engaged follower IDs.
That is the magic number. Out of 1 million followers, that 50 to 60,000 is your true locomotive.
It's like hosting a giant music festival with 1 million people inside the gates, right?
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
If you want to promote your band's next set, you wouldn't just aimlessly hand out flyers to everyone wandering around the food trucks.
No, that's a waste of paper.
Right. What this tool does is essentially let you export a VIP list of the 50,000 people who were already sweating and singing along in the front row of your last concert. You already know they love the music. You just need a direct line to make sure they know what time you go on stage next.
That's a perfect visualization. And the underlying shift in power here really cannot be overstated. By explicitly defining these specific brand advocates and extracting their unique user IDs, you are fundamentally bypassing X's broad, unpredictable algorithm.
You're cutting it right out of the loop.
Exactly. You are taking complete control of your own community's data. You are no longer sitting back and hoping the platform decides to favorably route your content today. You are extracting the exact coordinates required to guarantee it.
Okay, so I've done the math. I've deduped the lists. I have a magical CSV spreadsheet sitting on my desktop with, let's say, 70,000 hyper-engaged user IDs, combining our in-house locomotive with that competitor overlap we poached earlier.
Right, your master list.
Yeah, my master list. But a file on my hard drive doesn't get me impressions. How do I actually force the X algorithm to look at this specific list without charging me a fortune to do it?
Well, this is where we get into the actual mechanics of the ad execution. The strategy hinges entirely on knowing exactly how to feed this offline data back into the system.
Right, and the guide is surprisingly transparent about the exact steps. Like, you literally log into ads.twitter.com, you navigate over to the Tools menu, and you click on Audiences. From there, you hit Create Audience, and you select the option for upload a list of your customers.
Yeah, that's the one.
This is where your spreadsheet comes into play. The guide gets slightly technical here just to ensure your upload doesn't fail. But essentially, X is pretty flexible. Like whether your data is delimited by tabs, commas, semicolons, or even a bar, you just upload the file and let the system digest it.
And it does take a bit of time to digest. The guide nights you need to wait up to 2 hours for processing.
Right. What exactly is happening behind the scenes during those 2 hours?
So the platform is taking the raw IDs you provided and matching them against its active user database.
Yeah.
It's essentially building a secure, custom, private audience that only your account has access to.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, and once that matching process is complete, you move to the final and really the most crucial stage, setting up the campaign. You go to create a campaign, you select advanced ads, and here is the critical pivot where most people get it wrong. You must choose a reach objective.
A reach objective, not an engagement objective, not a website click objective. Why reach?
Because the reach objective operates on a CPM model, cost per mil, which just means cost per 1,000 impressions.
Okay.
You are telling the platform, I don't need you to use your expensive algorithm to find people who might click. I already know these people will click.
Show it to them.
Exactly. I just need you to put the tweet directly onto their screens.
So you're paying for the billboard placement, not the foot traffic into the store. Because you already know the foot traffic is guaranteed.
Exactly. You are just renting the eyeballs.
And because you are using a CPM model on a list that you have already hyper-targeted, here's where it gets really interesting. The math suddenly tilts wildly in your favor.
Oh, big time.
Let's look at the numbers the guide provides. You have your custom list of 70,000 highly engaged users. Because you only pay a tiny fraction per 1,000 impressions, a budget of just $20 to $50 can theoretically multiply your tweet engagement by up to 25 times.
$20 to $50 for a 25x multiplier. That is a staggering return on investment.
It's almost unbelievable. So looking at these mechanics, what does this actually mean for you, the listener? I mean, if you are running a business or trying to grow an audience, are we essentially saying that native X ads are fundamentally broken unless you bring your own data to the table?
Honestly, yes. It's not that they are literally broken, but they are wildly, almost punitively inefficient for the average user.
Because you're paying for the algorithm to guess.
Precisely. Natively, you are paying the platform to guess. You are basically funding their machine learning experiments with your own marketing budget.
Wow.
But if we connect this to the bigger picture, by bringing your own hyper-personalized, pre-vetted data to a simple reach campaign, you are mathematically aligning every single cent of your ad spend with guaranteed interest. You turn a slot machine into a highly efficient distribution engine.
That's a great way to frame it.
And the guide makes a fascinating, purely mathematical point here. Reaching 50% of this tailored audience yields a linear 50% boost in engagement.
It's a direct one-to-one correlation. You remove all the variables. You aren't hoping they care. You know they care because you have the receipts of them interacting with your last 3,000 tweets.
Exactly.
It really demystifies the whole concept of buying engagement. You know, when people hear that phrase, they usually think of like buying fake bot clicks from a click farm in some basement.
Right, shady stuff.
But this isn't that. You aren't buying fake engagement. You're just paying a small toll to ensure your actual human fans can see your work.
It's securing the delivery of the mail, essentially.
Exactly. Okay, before we wrap up today, we have to talk about the manual virality shortcut. Because at the very end of this guide, Kevin drops a special tip that takes everything we just talked about and applies it without spending a single dime on ads.
Yes. And for immediate high-impact moments, this manual application is arguably even more powerful than the CPM strategy.
The tip is this. You take that beautiful CSV file we built, and you sort it to find the absolute top 500 most engaging accounts. The cream of the crop.
The ones at the very top of the spreadsheet.
Yeah, the people who are practically living in your replies. You take those 500 specific accounts, and you organize them into a private Twitter list. Then you simply monitor that list. When you have a major piece of content, drop a new article, a big product announcement, or a deep dive like this one, you look at that private list to see exactly who among your top 500 is currently active and online right now.
And then you strike.
You directly DM them, you reach out privately, maybe with a quick personalized message, and you ask them to share your content right then and there.
It's an incredibly focused, coordinated operation.
And because they are empirically proven to be your top 500 engagers, the friction is basically zero. They are highly likely to say yes and immediately retweet it, triggering that locomotive effect we talked about earlier.
It's brilliant. And if we bring this all back to why this matters for you, the listener, whether you are managing a major corporate brand or doing independent journalism, or you're just a creator trying to get your ideas heard, the core theme here is autonomy.
Autonomy, yes.
Your success, your reach, your ability to impact your field should not depend on the unpredictable whims of a 2-hour algorithmic window.
No, it shouldn't.
It shouldn't depend on whether a black box system decides to favor your post today. This entire methodology, from exporting the data to running the hyper-targeted CPM ads to coordinating direct DM strikes with your top advocates, it gives you the reins. It transforms social media from a game of chance into a predictable system that you actually control.
It's incredibly empowering. It means you don't have to be at the mercy of the feed anymore. But honestly, walking through all these mechanics, it also makes me look at the platform completely differently now.
How so?
Well, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to ponder as you scroll your timeline today. If the secret to fast virality is manually coordinating with your top 500 brand advocates in private DMs right when they are online, and using extracted data files to run perfectly targeted underground ad campaigns for literally pennies.
Right.
Does organic virality even exist anymore on social media? Or is every sudden viral moment you see on X actually just the result of a meticulously orchestrated behind-the-scenes data operation?
That is a fascinating question.
The next time you see a post completely explode out of nowhere, you might just be seeing the ripples of someone who knew exactly where to drop the stone.